folks, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if that's the case. Whichever of those two greetings applies to you, welcome and thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of time with me today. As you can see, it's a little bit fuzzy in here, which means I'm using the green screen, and one day I will figure out how to do it absolutely perfectly. But that day is not today. So please bear with me while I, a non-technical person, do attempt to work things out. Some days it goes a little more smoothly than others, so do bear with me on that one. So, what do I have for you today? Well, it's not an unboxing and it's not a work of fiction by someone else. It's not a short story from the Victorian or Edwardian period today. I have decided that things from real life is now going to be like a thing, like a series on my channel where I'll just decide to talk about things from real life, my life specifically, going on in general. The first video in what is I have now decided is going to be this series is the This Is Goth one. And I just decided that I would like to make more videos of just me rambling at you for no particular reason. It will not offend me if you choose to skip them. They're probably not that interesting to anybody other than myself. But anyway, that's the context with what's happening. The next video should be back to reading aloud antique spooky stories. I have one picked out, ready to go. At least I think I do. I'm having trouble deciding between two stories, which, like, it's not a real problem because, you know, you record one week and then the other the following week. It's not really a problem, but I have that issue. I hem and haw and go back and forth a lot when I'm trying to pick one. So to allow myself a little more time to deal with something that, as I say, isn't really a problem, I thought I would share my own spooky story, a thing that happened to me. I'm not going to say it was ghosts or whatever. I will relate to you the events that happened that creeped me out, and you can decide for yourselves. It's and I readily admit this, it is entirely possible that this situation had a perfectly logical, normal explanation, but goddamn did it creep me out at the time, so I thought I would tell you about it. Now, if you know me in real life, and I think most of you watching, at least at this point, probably do, you know that I work in the museum field and have for about 10 years now. I have been in countless 19th century, early 20th century buildings. I've been in them by myself. I've been in them by myself after dark. Generally speaking, they don't really scare me, just because I think until you live or work or spend a large amount of time in a historic building, you don't understand how weird they can be. I think everybody has that sort of abstract concept in their head that, oh, buildings do, especially old buildings, they make weird noises and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think people realize just how weird old buildings can be. I currently, in my working life, go in and out of a particular historic building where, depending on the humidity level and wind direction, stepping on a particular spot in the floor in one room will actually open a door in a completely separate room because the building's so old and the floors are warped. So again, the historic buildings don't typically frighten me just because I've spent so much time in them in my working life. But this is the story of the one time when an old building kind of got to me, at least a little bit. So it was at a place where I no longer work. I'm no longer at this particular museum. But it was my turn to come in and be the first person in that morning to run a program. It was a program that required actually quite a lot of setup. So one person was always scheduled to sort of come in first and get everything started. So the thing is, when I say first, you are there first. You have the key. You unlock the front door. That is the only door in that building that has an exterior lock. Everything else, you can lock it from the inside, but not the outside. So I get this set of keys, and as far as I'm concerned, normal work day. I head over to this building. It's still quite early, and I unlock the door. So I am the first person in this building. The inside is dark and silent. The stove is cold. Like there's nobody in there. The cleaners will clean at the end of the day after our program. They don't come in the next day unless like a pipe has exploded or something. But that's different. So I'm the first one in. I unlock the door. I turn on the lights. These buildings all did have modern electric lights in various places. So I turn on the lights. I put all my stuff down on this big wooden table that's sort of in the middle of the room on the first floor. And I'm just going about this setup. I'm pulling out the supplies I need. I'm setting out activities for the school kids that are going to be coming. And the other major task is to get the wood stove lit, to get it going, because if you don't get it going early enough, it won't be hot enough to do anything with by the time the kids get there. So I'm kneeling down on one side of the stove. I've got the firebox open. I'm sort of feeding everything in, trying to lay my fire to get it started. And this building does have a second floor. The only door to that second floor was on the other side of the stove. So there was me, the wood stove, and then just behind the stove was a door that is latched that goes up to the second story. And as I'm sitting there trying to get this fire lit, I can hear from upstairs, because the floor was, again, this was a very old building, so the floor was incredibly thin. Like, I'm pretty sure the museum's probably going to have to replace this floor in like the next few years or so. It was quite thin. And I could hear on this floor footsteps. And first I stopped, because I thought, well, that can't be what I'm hearing. That's ridiculous. I'm the only one in here. There is no way to get up to the second floor from the outside of the building. There is a fire exit up there, but it can only be opened from the inside. I've unlocked the building. I know there was nobody in here before I got here. So how could there possibly be footsteps? And I thought, well, maybe it's on the roof. Like, you get raccoons or rats or a large bird or something. So I thought, well, maybe it's just on the roof. So I thought nothing of it, started back at my work, had just lit the fire, closed the door to the firebox, and I hear footsteps again. But the previous footsteps had sort of been like a few and then stopped, which is why I had sort of been able to dismiss it as, well, maybe it's a squirrel or whatever. That's actually another story about the same building. Sometime, maybe I'll tell you the story about how we had to fish a live squirrel out of a toilet with a broom, but that's a story for another day. So I sort of straighten up, and I can hear footsteps again. But instead of just being, thump, 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 enough to be a pattern where you think, ooh, footsteps, and then stopping, this carried on, and I could hear them. I could hear them walk up, down one side of the room, turn to sort of where the staircase would be, sort of almost above my head when I was beside the stove, and then walk back to the far side of the room. And I knew they were footsteps. They were quite distinctive. I'm sure everybody listening to this, the sound of footsteps. It seems silly to have to emphasize that, but you all know, if you've ever been in a building with 2 stories, especially an older one, when there's someone walking around upstairs. That is a distinct sound, different from, a branch tapping on a window or something. And again, at this point, I'm freaked out, but not so much that I'm really, really scared. I'm more just kind of unnerved. So I think, well, something's up here. It is totally possible that someone maybe came in and got locked in by mistake. Like, that could happen. Somebody could unlock the door, go in. Somebody else could have walked by, seen that the door was open, and then just locked it on them. Although why that person locked inside wouldn't just go use the fire, that theory has flaws. But that's what I was thinking at the time, was maybe somebody got locked in accidentally early in the morning when security was doing their checks or something. I don't know. So I walk up, and one of the unfortunate things is that the light for the second story is halfway up the staircase, and it's a dark brown switch on a dark brown wall. So there was a few seconds of panic in my mind between when I opened the door to the dark cavern of this stairwell, and I had to walk up the steps in the dark, to when I could flick this light on. So I turned it on, and I go up. Nothing. Of course, there was nothing. If there was something, this wouldn't be a spooky story. So I think, well, that's weird. And I go up the stairs all the way to walk around and make sure there's no wildlife that had somehow gotten in. There was nothing. I don't know what I would have found that would have explained the sound of footsteps, but I walked around. Nothing was out of place. No windows were open. The little fire escape that's up there, that's on a push bar, was pulled firmly shut. So nothing could have gotten in, nothing could have gotten out, and nobody walked past me by the wood stove to walk up the stairs. So freaky. But I walked back down the stairs, and I closed the door and latched it, because, like, if it's something spooky, I don't want that thing like in horror movies where you look up and it's just like right there, because I don't know, that just, no, thank you. No, thank you. So I go back downstairs to carry on setting up. And as soon as I get downstairs, close the door, walk over to the table that's almost right by the stairs, it's in the middle of the room. And as soon as I start messing with stuff on the table, I hear the footsteps again. And it's the same route. It starts from the far side, goes back across the length of the second story, because it was all just one room up there, over to where the top of the staircase would be, and walks back. And I thought, well, I'm sort of obligated to go up and check and make sure. At least that's how I felt. I was obligated to go up and check. So I can hear the footsteps going. As soon as I walk over to the door and I put my hand on the latch to open it, the footsteps stop. I go back up. I didn't go up all the way, though, this time. I only went up enough to sort of poke my head up above the level of the floor and do a quick sort of once over, and I went back downstairs. There was nothing. It happened one more time. I closed the door, started messing with things. Not messing with things, setting things up. I shouldn't be saying messing things. I was actually doing my job. And again, as soon as I sort of start getting into working, the footsteps start again, almost as if whoever it and whatever it was waiting for me to become busy with something else. I don't know if, like, waiting for me to be distracted, waiting to, I don't know, maybe the idea was this sound could hide itself in other sound. I don't know. Like I said, this might have just been a squirrel or a raccoon with absolutely impeccable timing. It's entirely possible. So again, I'm doing stuff, same thing. I can hear the footsteps that come across the room, over by the staircase, go back. And I don't go back up, I just sort of stopped and listened. And sure enough, as I was waiting, it happened again. Across the room, over by the stairs, back. And at this point, I've decided I've had enough of that shit. And I got my coat and my phone, and I went outside, and I waited on the porch until my next coworker to arrive actually got there. I sat on the porch and waited for another human, because I didn't want to be in there by myself. I didn't tell this person either, by the way, that is what had been that's why I was waiting on the porch. I didn't mention it. Honestly, I'm surprised they never asked, now that I'm thinking about it. But as I said, it's not the scariest story, and I'm totally willing to admit that it could have had some logical explanation, but it remains the only time something unexplained has happened to me in a historic building, and remains probably the only time where I had something happen that wasn't just like a weird feeling, because that does happen to me, especially in parts of historic buildings when you're locking up and there is no modern light and it just gets darker and darker as you're locking up. But I attribute that to just like the inborn sort of primordial human fear of the dark and the unknown. That's not the building's fault. That's my lizard brain's fault. So it's the only time that a historic building has sort of genuinely gotten to me. And that is my story for today. The only time a historic building has freaked me out, and the only thing I have, I think, in the way of a personal spooky experience. If you've ever had any personal spooky experiences, please comment below. If you've liked this, please click like on the video, subscribe to my channel. If you have other ideas for topics I should talk about, if you want to hear about the squirrel toilet thing, please comment below. Other than that, I hope you and your loved ones are safe and well, and have a good afternoon, evening, weekend, wherever you are in your schedule. Bye, everyone.